Thank you all for coming out for this important topic. We are gathered here to say redistricting reform in Pennsylvania is past due, and to announce support for the two bills, one commission redistricting reform strategy introduced in the House last week as House Bills 22 and 23. An attempt to have one constitutional amendment reform both congressional and legislative redistricting ran out of time last summer. So these two bills are designed to put an independent commission in place for congressional redistricting through a simple bill, then assign legislative redistricting to that same commission through a constitutional amendment that would need to pass in this session, the following session, and then go to referendum in May of 2021. Our state constitution says that all power is inherent in the people, and that the people have at all times the right to alter and reform their government as they may deem proper. Yet, past attempts to reclaim the power of our vote have been ignored and blocked and stalled and buried. We have learned a great deal since we started just 3 years ago. We have seen the tight knot of dysfunction created when the same men who draw district maps to barricade themselves against the will of voters use their resulting seniority to rig procedural rules to block reforms that would return power to the people and to their duly elected representatives. We have seen how a bill supported by more than a majority of the House could be stalled, then gutted, and then held in limbo. And we have seen how committee chairs and party leaders can act like petty despots, ignoring voters completely because their districts are so safe. Most constituents gave up years ago on any hope of choice at the polls or of being heard here in the halls of Harrisburg. But we have also seen that the people of Pennsylvania are tired of being ignored. They are tired of dysfunction, and they are ready to work very hard to reclaim our place as a model of representation and as a commonwealth where people of all backgrounds, all races, and all beliefs can thrive. Yes. This is just a small fraction of our army of volunteers across the state working hard on this issue. Fair Districts PA started as a coalition of organizations, but it has grown quickly to become a statewide movement led by volunteers of all political persuasions, standing together to reclaim a government of, by, and for the people. With me here are volunteers who have presented over 670 informational meetings to date in all corners of the state. Behind me are local and regional leaders, volunteers who have presented successful resolutions in support of an independent redistricting commission, now approved in 20 counties and over 270 municipalities, representing almost 3/4 of the state. We all came to the topic of redistricting through different routes. Anger at continued lack of choice at the polls, frustration that policies we supported were never even considered despite strong public support, amazement how ineffective, inefficient, and unaccountable our legislature has become, not because of those we elect, but because of the rules that shut out any hope of change or of reform.
It's an outrage.
It is. Right. We are united in our conviction that without fair districts, we cannot have accountable, responsive government. And without that, we will never see real solutions to the pressing social and economic problems of our time. We are also united in our determination to see reform now, in time for the 2021 redistricting process. We will not wait another decade. I'm joined here today by Tim Stevens, CEO of the Black Political Empowerment Project in Pittsburgh, one of our earliest organizational supporters and a longtime advocate for voting rights. He is here to remind us again of the great importance of ensuring that every single vote counts in every single election. And I am joined by Representatives Steve Samuelson and Tom Mert, the prime sponsors of the 2 bills, 1 commission strategy introduced in House Bills 22 and 23.
All right.
Representative Samuelson has had several passed bills with high numbers of support from both sides of the aisle, but none have ever made it out of committee. Also with us are Representative Pam DeLissio, who has been working to relaunch a much-needed government reform caucus and has been a strong supporter of this reform, and Representative Gene DiGirolamo, who earlier this year introduced House Resolution 11, to form a committee to study House procedural rules to ensure that good ideas are heard and come to a vote. Also with us are other representatives. Steve Samuelson would introduce you all, but I am grateful for your support, grateful for your co-sponsorship, and as of today, House Bill 23 has more co-sponsors than any other bill in this session so far. I appreciate all of these representatives, Tim Stevens, all of you volunteers. I appreciate the work that you all are doing together to promote fair elections, effective governance, and the common good of our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Are we here for success? Are we here for victory? Yes. Are we here for democracy? Yes. Democracy in action. Yes. Democracy in action. Yes. In democracy in results. Yes. Are we here? Yes. Are we going to be heard? Yes. Are we going to be heard? Yes. Are we going to be heard? Yes. Come on. How about a hand for our leader who has put the energy, the charm, the focus, the time to bring us all together. Carol Kuniholm. Now, I give a lot of instructions as chair and founder of BPEP, the Black Political Empowerment Project in the Pittsburgh, Allegheny County area, but also take directions. She sent me an email that says our theme is redistricting reform is past due. What is it? Past due. What is it? Past due. What is it? Past due. What are we going to do? We're going to fix it. What are we going to do? Fix it. What are we going to do? Fix it. What are we going to do? Fix it. When are we going to fix it? Now. When? Now, I chair an organization that was founded May 21st, 1986, 33 years ago this May, when there were no blacks on city council in Pittsburgh, believe it or not. There had been, but there weren't any when we created this project. I was in a class. We were asked to name a complaint in life. It could be you need a new relationship, a new job, a new house. How about a new world around us? I was upset that there were no black people on city council. So we made it up, the Black Political Empowerment Project. 33 years later, we're still advocating for change, advocating for mobilization, advocating for justice. And listen, look at this woman's t-shirt. Democracy is not a spectator sport, it's a participatory sport. Turn around, show it to him. Show them. Democracy is not a spectator sport. It is a participatory sport. And you cannot participate properly if people are not allowing you to participate properly. If the lines are drawn in a way that your vote does not really make a difference because you're not allowed to make a difference. If we're structuring injustice into a justice system, we will never get justice. We will never get fairness. The divisiveness in our country is partially because of gerrymandering. Those of us on the left try to be more left. Those on the right try to be more right, and none of it is right. What is right is fair districts, PA. That's what we're here for. Why are we here? Justice. Why are we here? Freedom. Why are we here? Fairness. Why are we here? Fair districts, PA. Let's get it done.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Representative Tom Mert. I represent part of Montgomery County and part of Philadelphia. Very proud to be here. Very proud to be the prime sponsor of House Bill 22. House Bill 22 is similar in many ways to House Bill 722 from last session, and it's co-sponsored by more than half of all of our House members. It also comes with a companion bill. Prime sponsor, my good friend from the Lehigh Valley, Steve Samuelson, House Bill 23. House Bill 23 is powerful because it is the implementing legislation for the proposed constitutional amendment. Both bills have been endorsed by various stakeholders, including Fair Districts PA. Our proposal would create an 11-member independent redistricting commission to replace the existing legislative Reapportionment Commission, which consists of 4 legislative leaders, plus a chairman appointed by the state Supreme Court. Instead, our legislation would have House and Senate district lines drawn by a randomly selected group of interested voters from both major political parties, plus independents and third-party members. Commission members and their spouses could not have been lobbyists, political operatives, or federal or state employees within 5 years prior to their appointment to the commission. The Independent Redistricting Commission would also be responsible for congressional redistricting, which is currently done by the General Assembly enacting a bill that has been negotiated by legislative leaders. This bill includes requirements to assure transparency in the redistricting process and clear standards for the commission to follow in drawing district lines in a fair manner. A final redistricting plan would require the approval of at least 7 out of 11 commission members, including at least 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 2 independent or third-party members. How's that for reform? I want to mention that you'll notice that there is an ample amount of bipartisan support for what we're trying to do here. And I will also tell you that one of the biggest concerns I hear when I'm knocking on doors in my district is what I would call a lack of trust of government. And sometimes it doesn't matter your political convictions or your political party. If you're an incumbent, people want you out. The lack of trust is that profound. Well, one of the biggest manifestations of the lack of trust is gerrymandering. There's no question about it. And I thank Carol and I thank Fair Districts PA for bringing this to the forefront. The last thing I want to say is that a final redistricting plan would require the approval of at least 7 of the 11 members. I mentioned that. In the unlikely event that the commission is unable to agree on a plan, the bill would require that the commission move to a process of elimination voting until only one plan remains in each category. The elimination voting process is an improvement over House Bill 722 from last session because it keeps the responsibility for redistricting within the Independent Redistricting Commission until the process is completed. You've heard this, and it almost sounds cliche. Elected officials should not be picking their constituents. It should be the other way around. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Fair Districts PA for the great work they've done.
The people draw the lines. The people draw the lines. The people draw the lines. The people draw the lines.
The people draw the lines. The people draw the lines. People draw the lines. I'm Steve Samuelson from the Lehigh Valley, the prime sponsor of House Bill 23, along with my colleague, Representative Tom Mert, and I'm so honored to stand with Tom Mert today. What an outstanding legislator and what a champion for this cause. So we have many of our co-sponsors with us today. Let me just mention a few that are here. We have Representative Joe Hohenstein, Representative Gene DiGirolamo, Representative Steve McCarter, Representative Joe Cerisi, Representative Pam DeLissio, Representative Steve Malagari, Representative Jennifer O'Mara. We have Representative Wendy Ullman, Representative Chris Sappi, Representative Joe Webster, and Representative Dan Williams, and also Representative Melissa Schusterman was here a few minutes ago. And Representative Liz Handbidge was also here. We are so proud that our legislation, House Bill 22 and 23, 2 bills, 1 commission, has broad bipartisan support. As of today, we have 86 co-sponsors. That represents more than 42% of the House, and we're just getting started. Our sponsors represent large cities and small towns. Our sponsors represent urban and rural areas. Our sponsors represent communities in the eastern part of Pennsylvania, in the west, and in central Pennsylvania. We know that we have such strong legislative support because of the overwhelming public support for redistricting reform in Pennsylvania. I want to thank Fair Districts. I want to thank Carol Kuniholm for all of your leadership. There have been more than 26,000 people that have come out to attend a meeting in person to speak up for redistricting reform. There are tens of thousands of citizens who have called their legislators, who have emailed their legislators, and who have visited their legislators at the local office. Your work is appreciated. We are here today because of your efforts. We need to enact redistricting reform in Pennsylvania because we need to change the way that districts are drawn in our state. Under the current process, politicians are in charge of redistricting in Pennsylvania. And the districts we end up with are districts that reflect what is best for the politicians and for the political parties. We need to put citizens in charge of redistricting, and we need to create the independent redistricting commission that is outlined in House Bill 22 and House Bill 23. We seek this change because we need to bring fairness and openness to our redistricting process in Pennsylvania. We need districts that are compact. We need districts that are contiguous. We need districts that respect municipal and county boundaries. We need districts that reflect communities of interest. We need districts that are drawn with public input and public hearings every step of the way. And we need districts that are drawn without politicians in the room. When citizens are in charge, we will get districts that benefit the people of Pennsylvania and districts that benefit the communities of Pennsylvania. Today is a very important step, but our work is not done. I want to encourage you to continue visiting your legislators, encouraging your legislators to add their names as co-sponsors, to continue organizing community events to talk about the importance of redistricting reform, and continue reaching out to our fellow citizens to build bipartisan support and encourage our citizens to speak up on behalf of the need for redistricting reform in Pennsylvania. Change is coming, and a fair redistricting process is on the horizon. An independent Citizens Commission can be and will be in place for 2021 and the next round of redistricting. Together we will make this happen.
Good afternoon. I was first elected in 2010 and was sworn in 2011. And at my very first town hall meeting, we discussed the need for redistricting reform. And I remember a constituent saying to me, well, it's 2011. We're not redrawing the line. And that was a year for redrawing the lines. And we won't be redrawing the lines again till 2021. Why are you talking about this now? Well, my 82nd town hall was a few weeks ago, and guess what we are still talking about? Redistricting reform. So this is a very heavy lift. As you well know, you have spent your time, your treasure, your energy, your ideas, and for this, the legislators here are very, very grateful. But we need to get this particular topic over the goal line. We need to get it to the governor's desk. It needs to happen. So in my work, I try to use social media as a way to reach out and disseminate information. And some of you may be familiar with the concept of a hashtag. It's just a way to track some topics, some threads of conversation. And when it comes to redistricting reform, there's two in particular that I find myself using with alarming frequency. And one is hashtag Cluckfuster. You figure out the correct spelling of it. The other one is when you have to cheat to win. But the one I really want to be able to use really soon and be proud of is fair and square. That's all we're asking. We want this process to be fair and square, and not fair and square to legislators, fair and square to the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. To that end, I am happy to announce today, particularly at this forum in front of my constituents and other citizens of the Commonwealth, that we will be restarting the Government Reform Caucus. The caucus was originally the brainchild, if you will, of Representative from Lancaster County, Brian Cutler, and Senator Rob Teplitz, who represented at the time Dauphin and York County. It started in the spring of 2013. I want to say the wheels came off, if you will, in June of 2016, and it came off for one reason, interestingly enough: redistricting reform. That's what caused that caucus to kind of fall apart. So my colleagues will soon get a memo about this. I want to read you just one or two sentences from the very original memo that went out about this Government Reform Caucus in March of 2013. And this is authored by Reps. Cutler and then Senator Teplitz. We believe and we know that many of our colleagues agree that bringing fundamental reforms to state government is the only way that we will be in a position of being able to truly address the critical, substantive challenges to our Commonwealth. And where many of us have individually sponsored various reform types and good government types of bills, the idea of doing it with a coalition that's both bicameral, meaning both the Senate and the House, and bipartisan, both Democrats and Republicans, became integral to the formation of this Government Reform Caucus. The very interesting addition to this that didn't happen back then was many special interest caucuses such as this actively utilize stakeholder groups, advocates from outside the legislature to help form the caucus, to help with the agenda of the caucus, and help make the issues that the caucuses are focusing on, helping make those visions hopefully a reality. So we will be including those stakeholders in both the planning and formation of this, and look forward to having particularly many of my new colleagues join me. Again, thank you for what you do.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Gene DiGirolamo, and I'm a Republican from Bucks County. This should not be a partisan issue. This should be an issue that Democrats and Republicans both embrace. And I want to thank Carol. Thank you for your leadership, and thank each and every one of you for being here today on this extremely important issue. We have to end gerrymandering here in the state of Pennsylvania once and for all. I've been here in Harrisburg as a legislator for 25 years. 25 years. When I first came in 1995, the Republicans were in the majority. A short time later, the Democrats came back in the majority. A short time after that, the Republicans came back in the majority. A short time after that, the Democrats were in the majority. And now, as we sit here today, the Republicans are in the majority. So it changes back and forth, and that's why it shouldn't be a partisan issue. We need an independent committee to draw the lines here in Pennsylvania. We really do. Carol mentioned that I'm the prime sponsor of House Resolution 11, and I would really like to get that up for a vote because I think it would pass. And quite simply, House Resolution 11 would form a reform committee in the House of Representatives. We haven't had a reform committee since 2007. It's been 12 years. That committee, if the resolution would pass, would be made up of 12 Republican members and 12 Democratic members. It doesn't get any fairer than that, does it? And the committee would meet, and then they would come back to the full House and suggest reforms to the House rules. And to pass a recommendation of the 24 members, you would need 18 votes. So 6 members from the other party would have to vote with 12 members from the other party to get something passed. Does it get any fairer than that? I don't think it does. And I think they can come back with some really good recommendations on changes to the House rules. And I'm just going to close with as far as the gerrymandering issue goes. And I'll tell you why gerrymandering is bad. And it goes on both sides of the aisle. Because even when one party is in charge, the other party is making recommendations on how to make their district safe. When you make these districts in Pennsylvania too safe, safe Republican and safe Democrat, elected officials are not worried about an opponent in November. They're more worried about an opponent that's going to run against them in the primary. So what that means is when they put up votes and make decisions, they're more worried about being the most Republican in the House or being the most Democrat in the House. And you know why that's bad? Because compromise is not a bad word when it comes to democracy and governing. And when you're only worried about somebody running against you in the primary, you are not likely to want to compromise with the other side. And in my 25 years, I'll tell you, when people, Democrats and Republicans, get together on a controversial issue and they're willing to sit together in the room and work together and compromise, you get much better legislation for all 12 million people that live in this great state of Pennsylvania. So, thank you for your hard work. I think we can get this done. I really do. I think we can get something passed for an independent commission. We've got to take the politics out of redistricting. We really do. We have to take the politics out of redistricting. And I'm just going to close with a quote because I thought it was great from my good friend, Representative Tom Mert. Elected officials shouldn't be picking their constituents. The constituents ought to be picking their elected officials. God bless you and thank you for your good work.
Thank you all. Let me remind you that no other major democracy allows any legislator a role in the redistricting process. Keep that in mind. No other major democracy allows legislators a role. In his farewell speech in 1989, President Ronald Reagan described gerrymandering as the practice of rigging the boundaries of congressional districts. He said, 30 years ago, "It is the greatest single blot on the integrity of our nation's electoral system, and it is high time we did something about it." That blot has become far, far, far worse in the decades since then. And I would say nowhere worse than here in Pennsylvania. And it is far, far, far past time to do something about it. Thank you.